back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys, so I'm here today to do a joint book review of two books that I think are quite hard-hitting and really deal with real intense topics. If that's not for you, maybe don't read them, but I think they are really important books. So they are Kindred by Octavia E. Butler and Human Acts by Han Kang. So I'm going to start off with Human Acts. They're quite different because this one is more of a fiction book, but it's based in reality. It focuses on Korea, particularly South Korea, at a time where there were a lot of student uprisings and rioting was very rampant, and there was a lot of police control that involved death, and the government was hugely strict and hugely kind of dominant, and there were a lot of people killed in this really kind of tumultuous time in South Korea's history. It's set in the 1980s and it's in Gwangju. We follow a young boy at the very start of this who, in the wake of a very vicious, nasty student uprising, is searching for his friend. He is hoping that his friend's corpse or his friend himself might be among the hundreds of other corpses that are laying around. So he takes on this job kind of going through corpses, cataloguing who is there and who is not, and he is the one that people come to when they're looking for someone dear to them. Families come to him and they say, have you seen this person? And he might direct them to a corpse of a person who was killed in the uprising, and that's kind of what he does. We follow lots of different storylines in this. I think there are about 6 different storylines and characters that we follow, and all of them interlink in different ways. It's very hard-hitting, it's very brutal, so if you don't like that kind of writing, then you probably won't want to read this one. But I think it is a very intense but very interesting read overall. It's definitely one that I found captivating at times and also very horrible at times. It was quite... I started trying to read it late at night and didn't realise how horrible it was going to be, and I was reading it and I was thinking, maybe this is not a bedtime story kind of book, and it's definitely not. So I ended up reading it mostly in the daytime and in the mornings, and I think that was a good time for it because you have to be quite awake and quite with it to sit and absorb this horrible information you're being told about this very nasty time. Now, I do think that there are some interesting characters within this, but I also think there are some plot lines that I could have maybe done without. My favourite plot line was the boy at the beginning, and then also we get a viewpoint from his friend who is dead and is a kind of ghost searching for his family and where he came from. He has died and he's kind of out of his body. It's a very surreal, kind of borderline magical realism, I suppose, experience. And I definitely liked that. I thought those 2 plot lines were really good. I also thought the final plot line, or maybe the final section, which is told from the point of view of the real author as she went around looking for information about this time, focusing on specific families. She spoke to families of people who had family members die in this, and she based a lot of her characters off of some of the real people who did die in this uprising, and I just thought it was very emotional. The final section was very emotionally charged, and it felt very genuine, and I really enjoyed that. So I didn't love the middle section as much. The middle section felt not as exciting or genuine to me. It felt a little bit contrived at times, but overall I think the emotions that I got from this, and the fact that it was based in reality and it definitely had links to real people who had died, gave it that sense of depth and gave it some real emotional kicking moments. So I did really enjoy this overall. I think it's not going to be a book for everyone, but if it does sound like your sort of thing, maybe pick it up and give it a go. I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars because of the 6 storylines, 3 I really liked and 3 were just so for me. So I gave it 3 out of 5 stars overall, but I would love to hear your thoughts if you guys have read this one and whether you've read any other Han Kang books, because I am interested in picking up The Vegetarian, but I haven't yet, so be interested to hear if you guys like that one, if you like this. The next one I picked up and have to tell you guys about is Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. Now I will say before I start this that this was a Magical Space Pussycats pick for the month of September, which means that we have done a full discussion of this book. Myself, Chelsea from The Reading Outlaw, and Elizabeth from Books and Pieces, we run a podcast together called The Magical Space Pussycats, so I'll put a link to that below and above in the cards, and if you want to go and listen to that episode, then you can download it onto your phone, or you can just listen and watch it on YouTube, whatever you want to do. But we went into a lot of deeper discussion of this book there, so if you are interested in a more deep, kind of spoilery, in-depth discussion, then go over there and listen to that, because that will have all of that stuff in it. For the non-spoilery review bit, stay here and listen to this. So this is a story that is set in 2 time periods. We follow a young woman and her husband, Kevin and Dana. Dana is a young black woman and Kevin is her husband. He is white. They both live in America in the 1970s, but there is a separate storyline which follows a young white boy called Rufy and his family and the slaves that he owns. And this storyline is set in the 1800s, like 1810s, that sort of period. It deals a lot with slavery. It deals with black and white people and the difference in racism and race generally in these 2 time periods. I mean, racism was still around in today's age, let alone in the 1970s, and certainly it was around in America in the 1800s, because the time period we focus on is when there are a lot of plantations, there are a lot of slaves who are owned and brutally beaten up, controlled, regimented, everything like that in this time period. And we follow Dana, who gets sucked back in time because Rufy is actually her great-great-great ancestor, and she has to help save him every time he does something that could cause him a death. She gets pulled back into the past to try and save him and ensure that she will still be born because he is a great ancestor of hers. Rufy is a really complex character. He wants to be good, but he has a lot of nasty influences on him. As you go through the story, you get to see some really interesting changes in his personality as he grows from a young innocent child into a man who has all of the rights in the world just by being white. Dana herself comes from a privileged life where she is married to a white man. She's quite happy. She's on equal level playing fields with him, and they treat each other equally, and they don't really regard the skin colour that they have to mean one is better than the other. Whereas going back in time, Dana is put into a situation where she is a slave. Just because she's black, she is a slave, and that is what her reality is, whether she likes it or not. They don't know that she comes from another time period. They don't even care that she comes from another time period. All they care about is, you're black, you're a slave. That's how it goes. So this definitely has some hard-hitting scenes. It has some rape scenes. It doesn't go into the gory details of it, but they are in the book. And we do have some deaths, and we have some beatings, and some nasty moments that, you know, it brings up a lot of nasty things that really did happen to black people in America at this time. I'm sure it's the same for any slaves anywhere in any time period that these things would have happened. So it's very relevant to everyone's history, whether you're American or not, it doesn't matter. It's so interesting because not only is it dealing with these heavy topics, it's actually very readable, it's very easy to get into, the characters are quite quick to connect with you, I felt, and I definitely enjoyed Dana as a person. I think her decision-making skills and the way that she handled these very tricky emotional situations was really, really good. I think that Octavia E. Butler throws some really interesting curveballs into the story, and she just keeps you going on a path that you learn things as you read this book, and I think it's fantastic. So I will certainly be picking up more of her work in the future. I would highly recommend to you guys starting with this one if you've never read her stuff before, because I hadn't, and I really enjoyed this. And I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars overall, and it was just really eye-opening. So do let me know your thoughts on both this one and on Han Kang's Human Acts. If you've read either of these, I would love to know. Leave me thoughts down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.